Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day you're watching this. This is part three of my little introduction to party walls, which I'm breaking down into separate videos. The first of which was just a general overview of party walls, the procedures and the legislation. The second was a look at what actually is a party wall, a party structure, and adjoining excavations. And I said at the end of that one that I would then go on to service of notices. But jumping ahead, like I normally do, I'm going to take a step back, and before we look at actual service of notices, I'm going to just have a quick look, not too long, at some of the terms as to who's who in respect of the Act. So the two main titles you're going to come across are owner and surveyor. Now, owner, by and large, is split into the building owner, which is the character that wants to undertake the work. That could be a huge I don't know, an investment house, a pension company, something like that buys, builds, and develops commercial property. Or it could be Mrs. Brown lives at number 44 that wants to do a small rear extension. Both are covered essentially within the same legislation, and both in this argument would be a building owner. The second is an adjoining owner. So again, who is an adjoining owner? Well, if, as per part two of my video, you're on the other side of that party wall, you're above or below that party structure, or you're within 3 meters or potentially 6 meters of any excavations that are going to be done by the building owner for their works, then you could be defined as an adjoining owner. Once again, this could be Marks and Spencers, it could be Tesco's, it could be Mr. Davis, who lives at number 46. Again, all are covered by the Act. Doesn't separate as to the size of the owner, because we're concerned as to, are you a building owner as the Act, and are you an adjoining owner as the Act? Generally, it's yes or no. But that does take with it another question, is actually who is the owner? What does the owner actually mean under the Party Wall Act? Well, there's various definitions within the Act contained within Section 20, and it defines various things. It defines what foundations are, what excavations are, what the party walls are, but it also defines an owner. And an owner under Section 20 of the Act is, first of all, a person in receipt of or entitled to receive the whole or part of any rents of profit of the land. Fair enough. B, a person in possession of the land or otherwise than as a mortgagee or as a tenant from year to year or for a lesser term as a tenant as will. Fair enough. And C is a purchaser of an interest in land under a contract for purchase of an agreement of a lease, otherwise other than an agreement of a tenancy from year to year. So what this essentially means is, let's go for residential, because it's probably easier for most people to understand that if you own that house, forget the mortgage company, they don't have a part of to play under the Party Wall Act, but you as the mortgagor are the building owner. If you're a leaseholder in a block of flats with your 67-year lease, your 87-year lease, your 999-year lease, you are an owner as the Act. Also is the freeholder. So don't take it as a given that any property just has one owner. It could have several. And I'm going to come on to this in a moment when I do show some pictures of blocks of properties that show how you can have multiple owners. When you think you're actually just doing a party wall agreement with next door, you could fall into a bit of a trap there. So we'll look at that in a minute. But interesting is part C of this, a purchaser of an interest in land. So if you are looking to build your side or your rear extension and next door is on the market, not a problem. But if next door has an agreement to purchase and it's all going through the legal process, then the purchasers may also be considered as an owner under the Act. So you'd need to serve notice on them, because whatever's agreed with the owner, it is a legal document. Our party wall award is a legal document, and that then can be taken on, and basically the next person has to honour what's been agreed. Now, normally if that's agreed with someone who isn't for sale, then it's purely under the agreement of that owner, and if he then subsequently decides to sell, then whatever he's agreed goes with that sale. But if he's actively selling and he's got a contract for purchase out against the property and the party wall award is being agreed, then it's only fair and proper that the purchaser also potentially has a say, because they're the ones that are essentially going to be held of the terms and conditions of the party wall award. So it's not most of the time, without doubt, it's going to be fairly straightforward, fairly black and white, but it just needs to be checked, it just needs to be looked into, because it may not always be. So the second term you come across quite a bit is a surveyor. So who can be a surveyor under the terms of the Act? Well, quite simply, a surveyor can be anybody that is not a party to the matter being appointed. That means you can't represent yourself under party wall legislation. Now, you can serve notices yourself, that is not a problem, and I'm going to address this further in our notices bit that I do as the next video. But you can't, once there's a dispute, you can't then act for yourself. Obviously, you're going to be a little bit biased, and that's not proper. So what about surveyors? There essentially are three types of surveyors under the Act. The building owner is the chap that's wanting to do the extension to his house or to build the hotel, whatever. That is the building owner. That's the person who's instigated this whole process because he is desiring to have some works carried out. It could be a £5,000 small tiny extension or popping a steel beam in a wall, or it could be £50 million worth of work. It doesn't matter. It all comes under the term building owner as far as the Act is concerned. And the second is adjoining owner surveyor. Now, if you're next to, above, below, within the influencing difference or within the applicable distance of the Act of a building owner that's having the work done, you are an adjoining owner. By default, the person you appoint on your behalf to act as your surveyor is the adjoining owner surveyor. Now, it's not a traditional client surveyor relationship where the surveyor is going to potentially advise the client what's best for them. And if you are doing any works with a party wall surveyor, they shouldn't ever refer to their appointing owner as their client, because technically they're not. They are their appointing owner. The surveyor has duties under the Act to do things essentially fairly and impartially, and he can't just take instructions from his owner to put into the party wall what he likes. It's got to be fair and reasonable. So actually, I've said there's three. There's not. There's four surveyors. I'll just come to the third one, which I thought of. The third is an agreed surveyor. Now, for small residential bits and pieces, it's fairly straightforward. The neighbours are kind of in agreement, but they just want everything wrapped up and formalised. Perhaps you have an agreed surveyor, and that is a person that is agreed to act independently, but for both the building owner and the adjoining owner. That's the one I forgot. So once you've got your your two surveyors appointed, the first thing those two surveyors must do is appoint what's called a third surveyor. And the purpose of a third surveyor is he may never know that he's appointed, and I should imagine on, I don't know, 19 times out of 20, perhaps even more, a third surveyor is going to be named in a party wall award, and he's never going to know anything about it. Reason being, those two surveyors hopefully are fairly pragmatic, reasonable people, and they're just going to agree everything between themselves. But there's going to come from time to time a scenario that surveyors just do not agree on. And when that happens, they can refer to the third surveyor for an opinion. I'll cover fees on surveyors later, particularly the third surveyor, because it can be not quite so straightforward. But the fees for the surveyors under normal circumstances, shall we say, will be covered by the building owner. If there are counter notices and stuff like that being served, then it's not quite so straightforward. But when we're in the normal realms of Mr. Brown wants to do an extension and pop some steel beams in, he serves his notices on Mrs. Miggins, who lives next door. She appoints a surveyor. Most times the building owner, because he's instigated that the whole proceedings, is going to be the one that pays those fees. So they're the main two things to get your head around: who is an owner and who is a surveyor. I suppose I should also add in here about qualifications of surveyors. I'm a chartered building surveyor. There's a fair few of us around, jolly nice chaps generally, but you don't need to be chartered. A lot of solicitors and barristers do party wall work, particularly third surveyor work. You need a working knowledge of buildings and construction and how the Party Wall Act works, but you don't need to be super duper qualified to be a party wall surveyor. I've actually turned up on jobs where the party wall surveyor looked about 12, was wearing jeans and a ripped t-shirt, which didn't look very professional, but hey, he knew his stuff, so it didn't matter one iota. It's not something you need someone particularly qualified to do, but as long as they got a good understanding. But do make sure they got insurance. Anyone who's a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors will have MRICS or FRICS after their name. A chartered architect, RIBA after their name. They are obligated to, it's compulsory that they've got to carry professional indemnity insurance. If you pick Joe Bloggs surveyor from down the road who clearly isn't a member of any professional institutions, make sure they're insured, because if anything goes horribly wrong, you've got no comeback whatsoever if you've picked someone who's unqualified and doesn't have any professional indemnity insurance to back themselves up. So I hope that has provided a little bit of an infill. That was supposed to be on serving notices as my part 3, but I'm going to do that as part 4 because that is going to get a little bit more complicated. Sorry, not complicated as such, but a little bit more in depth. But I'm just going to show you now some images as to how this can start to get a little bit complicated with adjoining owners. So let's have a look at this picture here. This is a run-of-the-mill row of what look initially on the face of it as terrace houses. But in each of these, there are 3 stories of flats. So take one of those buildings, it doesn't matter which one. So you've got a leaseholder on the ground, first or second floor. Maybe one leaseholder, but let's assume for the argument's sake that you've got 3 leaseholders, Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C. You've then also got a freeholder. So Mr. D is the freeholder of one of those buildings. If that's repeated to the left and it's repeated to the right, you've now got 12. Yeah, 3 lots of 4. You've now got 12 owners, including yourself. So if you're in the ground floor middle flat, you've got to serve 11 party structure notices potentially. If you're looking to cut into the party wall to take your middle load-bearing wall out at ground floor level, so you want to pop a steel beam into the party walls both sides of the property. That's affecting the party walls, the owners immediately the other side of your party wall, but because the other flats above are taking loading on that party wall as well, it forms part of their structure essentially. You've also got serve notice on those other owners as well. But because the leaseholders are classified as owners under the Act, so also are the freeholders. So the freeholder would then also need to get a notice served upon him for the same. What about tenants? So let's say 4 of those flats are rent out to tenants on short-hold tenancies. No, they're not defined as owners under the Act. So it would be for their landlord, the leaseholder, to notify them of works being done, but it would be for the leaseholder themselves to either appoint their own owner or to agree to an agreed surveyor. So in this particular scenario, 11 potential party wall awards, 11 sets of notices for sure, 11 potential party wall awards. That could be 12 potential surveyors appointed for yourself as the building owner times 11, and then 11 individual. It's going to be an absolute headache to deal with. You could quite seriously on a job like this run up to £20,000–25,000 in fees for doing a couple of £1,000s worth of work. So that's the Act. There's not a lot we can do about that. You can either bypass the Act, which is unlawful, and you could risk having an injunction taken out against you, which means the courts could immediately get you to stop work, or you don't do the work, or you comply. So someone said to me once, if you think getting it right is expensive, try getting it wrong, which I think is absolutely brilliant. So that's it's actually turned into 14 minutes almost. Just quickly looking at some of the owners under the Act. Once again, thank you for getting this far. I really appreciate to all our subscribers and to our viewers. If you do like what we're doing, please click like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one, which will definitely this time be about serving notices. Thank you very much.